Welcome to the Liberal Europe podcast. I'm your host, Ricardo Silvestre, and thank you so much for listening to today's episode. For this conversation, it is a pleasure to be joined by Jelte Wiersma. He is the Secretary General of CEMA, which is the European Agricultural Machinery Industry Association, and is also a former journalist, raised in a farmer's family, and now is in Brussels working in a proactive European agenda for the industry. After we had the contribution of Jelte in one of the ELF events based on the publication Reconstructing the Common Agriculture Policy, we asked him to come to the podcast and talk about food security, but also the future of CAP. And after our main conversation, please stay to know a little more about the path that Jelte took before I got him in the podcast. But now, with no further ado, I bring you Jelte Wiersma. I'm here with Jelte Wiersma. Jelte, thank you so much for coming to the podcast.
Wonderful for having me. Thank you.
Jelte, let's jump into it. Let's step back and having a larger perspective. So reading the literature and reading even the journalists like yourself, we're going through a period of increasing concern with food security. Tell us then where we are right now on that particular aspect.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question indeed. I mean, first of all, I think we should remember that till not that long ago, a lot of people in Europe did not have access to a proper diet. Mm-hmm. This is only a very recent success. This is post-Second World War that we really got into a position in Europe where everybody has access to a proper diet and has enough proteins to sustain a healthy lifestyle. We forget about it if we walk into our supermarket and see 20,000 products from all over the world, and we can choose from, and fresh legume, fruits, vegetables being brought there 3-4 times a day with a just-in-time principle, and it's all healthy. We don't get sick from it compared to not that long ago, where people got sick, of course, often from food poisoning. So this is an amazing achievement. And when it comes to food security, we should not take this for granted. Because this food system we have built relies, of course, in the first place on fertilizers. These substances are limited. So at one point we run out of them. And how are we going to feed the world? Mm-hmm. That's the number one ingredient, I would say, in this discussion. And the second is, we have a growing population. So we need to feed that growing population, because we all know the misery there is in large parts of the world still due to the lack of access to a healthy diet. And then I'm not even talking about starvation, where about 800 people, according to the World Food and Agriculture Organization, are subject to starvation even. So to beef this up with the growing world population, we need to produce more food. And we need to do it in a more careful way when it comes to our nature, our surrounding areas we live. And with limited resources, that is chemical fertilizers that won't last forever. So we need to look at food systems that are resilient in the long run, that are able to feed the world with a diverse diet. And we need to make sure that food is affordable, not only important in these days of high inflation, where for many people food became a very expensive commodity, while it was actually becoming cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And farmers have been caught in the middle very much of this whole discussion. If we zoom in on what happened in the last couple of years in Brussels, a polarized discussion about the Green Deal and the Farm to Fork, which were all kinds of, and the Nature Preservation Act, which was all very well intended to improve the way farming is, improve the way the sustainability of the countryside, for sure, the natural sustainability that is. But farmers have been pressed in the last decades to do only one thing, produce as much food as cheaply as possible. And this is how our food system has been organized. And this makes perfect sense looking from the post-war era, starvation still around. But you can't change this overnight, of course, especially not if the consumers do not want to pay higher prices for food and the politicians do not want to spend more in taxpayers' money on subsidizing farmers to make a transition to food systems that in the long run are more resilient. Because it's very clear what my grandfather did was getting in his tractor, throw a lot of chemical fertilizer on the field, grow a lot of grass and feed his cow with it. But about 70% of the fertilizer is effectively washed away and washes into waterways and the sea at the end of the day, which is a horrible waste if you think how important fertilizer is. Fertilizer is more important than gold. We have challenges, and fortunately, we have a lot of technologies in place in our industry developed to help farmers to reduce the use of what we call inputs. This is chemical fertilizer, this is liquid fertilizer, this is the use of diesel as the fuel for the machines, of course. This is being more precise with your planting, have a higher yield, using less soil. So this is of course extremely exciting to work in this field for this reason, that you see what is possible with the latest technology to make sure farmers have less cost on inputs. So inputs like diesel, fertilizer, and so on, have higher yields, have higher margins while producing more with less.
Let's focus now a little more on the European Union. There's been a lot of discussion since I'm a child here in Portugal, but also across Europe, naturally, about the common agriculture policy. And now, recently, as we record this podcast, more even work done in this area. So tell us a little bit, what is your assessment of where are we now with CAP in the European Union?
Yeah, thanks for the question. We got the European agricultural policy in place 15 years later, when effectively food security was not so much an issue in Western Europe, at least, anymore. Well, the result was in the 1980s, as we all remember, the wine lake and the butter mountain, because and my grandfather was also caught in this. There was huge overproduction because production was subsidized. So the target of the agricultural policy was targeting production, beef up production to as high as much level possible. So then a quota system came into place, as you remember. So farmers were limited in what they could produce under the subsidies. And this happened to my grandparents as well. So
and let me interrupt you, Jelte, very quickly, because I would like to have a follow-up with a lot of impact at the society level. I remember in countries like Portugal, like Spain, there was this fierce debate about the quota, and they're paying us for not to produce. We want to, do our agriculture, and we can't. And we still have ramifications of that. So, but that's more of a political analysis. So please continue.
Yeah, but you're right. You're right. It was a very sensitive discussion in those days. And Europe's agricultural policy moved away from production support to land-based support. So you get a fixed number of amount of money for your hectares as a farmer. This is still in place till today. Of course, there are some incentives to have more green farming and more environmental friendly farming and this and that. But by and large, this system has been running for, let's say, 30, 35 years. And we see now a proposal from the Commission. Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has proposed a 2,000 billion euro budget, 2,000 billion euro budget for the next 7 years. And then we talk about 27-34. And part of this budget is the agricultural policy budget. And this was always the biggest budget. This was about 38% of the budget. But in the proposal that is on the table now, there would be a 20% cut in this budget. There would be more support for young farmers. And national governments get more liberty to top up farmer subsidies by rewarding good practices, good farming practices. So, this is a very heated discussion at the moment in this town. Is this a good proposal? I mean, decision will be taken over the next, let's say, 1.5 years, because the end of 26, the budget for 27 till 34 needs to be approved by the European Council, European Parliament, and so on. So we will have a debate, and that is ongoing now, very live here in Brussels, about this. Is this a good proposal? Well, already it's very clear member states are not very eager to indeed throw 2,000 billion euros to Brussels. This is a very heated debate, and within that heated debate, of course, agriculture is always one of the most important ones, but also because, of course, farmers will most likely come out in the streets and let their voices heard.
Yep.
If
as we have been seeing lately,
exactly, if there's not enough support for them. Yeah, this is a extremely sensitive discussion. We as agricultural machinery industry are quite careful in what we say about it. I can say that publicly, and that makes sense because we're a bit caught in the middle. Of course, we like farmers to have a lot of cash in hand to be able to invest in their farm. And this is not only agricultural machinery, but this is also barns and stables and solar panels and wind turbines and whatever they want, or build a campsite next to your farm, but make your farm a stronger economic entity ever so more. So this is for us a difficult and sensitive discussion. I can be very frank about that, and we wish the politicians and we wish the decision makers in this one a lot of wisdom.
Well, in this last minutes, tell me, particularly from your field, and I'm particularly more interested now in your function as someone that is representing industry like the machinery for agriculture purposes. What is then the lines of communication, of debate that you see that they're needed for that decision, that good sense decision that you just mentioned a minute ago, that wise decision to come in the near future?
But I think that the first question is to answer, what do we want? What do we expect from farmers? I think that's the number one question. Do we want cheap food, or do we want the countryside to be maintained in a romantic way, as farmers do? I mean, the beautiful countrysides in Europe are largely maintained by farmers, and this comes at a price, of course. What do we want? Where does the focus lie? And effectively, in proposals, you often see that it's a compromise that is politically viable. No? I mean, it's different political groups, different political parties. They all have their preferences. So you get all these ideas in a box, and they get in a blender, and they're being mixed, and then they get out, and you get a policy that touches on a lot of things, but doesn't have a clear direction. But this is perfectly understandable. Compromises are needed in politics if you want to move forward. But I think the main question needs to be answered. What do we want from our farmers? And how do we, with that answer at hand, want to support them? And this is often not clear. We want farmers to survive, yes. We want farmers to produce food, yes. It needs to be safe, healthy, diverse. Europe is very strong in diversity of agricultural produce. I mean, that's a luxury we enjoy thanks to the knowledge of our farmers. But that answer needs to be given. What do we want? And as said, in previous decades, it was very clear: production. That was the target. And this became less clear. This became a bit muddled in the last, let's say, 30, 35 years. And this was, first it was, hectare-based payments, and then you got all the environmental restraints or demands into farming, which are very sensible asks from the society to because at the end of the day that will save the countryside as well, because you need a healthy nature to operate as a farmer. So that's not in confrontation with each other. I mean, that we need to understand. That's not in confrontation with each other. But the main answer there is not given, and so I'm not sure we ever get a clear, indefinite answer. But I think this is a weakness in the agricultural policy budget, that it's not it doesn't have this clarity in it. What are we going to do and why? And then it becomes also difficult to voters to explain why we have such a budget, what it is for, and I defend the common agricultural policy. I mean, there are some clear things you need to stabilize as a government, because they are essential for your survival as country or bloc. And food is one of them. Water, energy, the military. I mean, the ideal military scoops up a lot of money, public money, but the ammunition and the tanks and what have you are never used and just scrapped after 40 years. That's the ideal military. So you build something and you scrap it after 40 years and you never use it. No, and that's the but it has a social of it has a cost. There is a cost to it. There's a public cost to certain topics that you need to accept, I think, because they are absolutely key. We cannot live without farmers, and we have near food security in Europe in the sense that we are self-sustainable. But look at Saudi Arabia, look at Singapore, those kind of places. The governments are very worried about their food security and actually are bringing in European farmers to sort out their food issues, because they are completely dependent on imports and they want to produce more homegrown food. Because what if the supply lines fall flat, like with the lockdowns or global conflict or something? We as Europe are in a luxury position that we can support ourselves.
Well, I'm going Sorry, go ahead.
And we should be grateful that we are in that position for generations of people who have been working on this. So, and the Common Agricultural Policy is very helpful in this, very instrumental. So I hope it will be a larger budget than it is now proposed, and I hope it will support farmers in a very wise and targeted way.
Yes, and I'm also editorializing a little bit my position as the host. Also starts with the consumer. We as consumers, we also have to make an effort to try to help our farmers and help the bigger system than just don't think about it every time we go grocery shopping. So as we are running out of time, I also want you to please, 30 seconds, tell us where people can follow not only your work, but your work also of the association. You are Secretary General. So where can people find you online?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I'm on LinkedIn. My name is Jelte Wiersma, so you can find me there for sure. And we have our website, of course, www.CEMA, that's CEAMMA, -agri, so agri.org. That's us, CEMA-agri.org. So you see all the latest we are doing there, and we look forward to the month of September because we have a wonderful event here in the European Parliament, where we showcase technology in the European Parliament, and we have the European Commissioner, Mr. Hansen for Agriculture, as our guest. So we are very happy to have host such an event in the Parliament with several MEPs from different political parties. So we will have great fun there and show what technology can bring to food security, to farmers, to sustainability, and so on and so forth.
Very good. I'm going to put the links on the podcast show notes, not only for Jelte LinkedIn profile, but also for the association website. I've been talking with Jelte Wiersma. He is the Secretary General of the European Agriculture Machinery Association. Jelte, this was fascinating. Please come back so that we can continue this very important conversation.
Thanks for having me. It was a great fun, and all the best to you. Good luck.
I want to know a little bit about the path that you took. We have you on the podcast. So how can someone thread in your way, let's call it that way, and be interested in machinery and agriculture? Tell us a little bit how that came about.
Well, that happened in a very awkward way. I mean, I did grow up partially on a farm. My grandparents had a dairy farm in the north of the Netherlands, in the region Friesland, where I'm from. I was always playing on their farm. I was always trying to help out my father, and with the emphasis on trying, of course, because I wasn't much use at that age. I was always playing on tractors, riding on tractors on the side seat in the village I grew up. So I'm a country boy. I'm a boy that grew up on tractors and faded a bit in the background because I have been a journalist for 20 years. I was writing for the Dutch National Press Agency, several regional newspapers, and finally I spent 14 years with Elsevier, the biggest weekly magazine on politics, economy, and so on in the Netherlands, my native country. And for Elsevier, I always wrote about countryside farming and so on. And one of the reasons I wanted to become a European affairs correspondent for Elsevier Weekly was actually that when I was a young journalist, when I started when I was 18, 19 years old, I was already writing about the common European agricultural policy. And I thought, writing from a provincial town in the north of the Netherlands, if the agricultural policy comes from Brussels, that's the place I need to go to. When I joined my former weekly, Elsevier magazine, the editor, when I applied, asked me, what do you want? And I said, I want to go to Brussels because that's where the action happens. And he said, you're absolutely right. So he hired me on the spot. So I have always, during my writing years, been very close to agriculture, and agriculture actually brought me to Brussels. After 7 years as a correspondent here, my time was up and I was supposed to become a political reporter in The Hague. But my wife, who I met during an agricultural dinner actually in Brussels, she works for John Deere, which is the biggest manufacturer of agricultural machinery in the world. So, we teamed up. And this is going strong now for 9-10 years. So I should remember that in detail, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
And we have a lovely daughter and all that. So life is good.
Mm-hmm. Well, to our listeners, I'm recording now. I can see Jelte, but I imagine that in your house, because I don't know if you're in your house recording this, but I imagine you have like little miniatures of all the tractors. Be honest. Come on, tell us.
I'm in the office actually, as I should be. I think. No, I'm in the office, and we have what we call scale models.
There you go.
We have all kinds of scale models of machines, and the range of machines being built in Europe goes up to about like of the number like 500 different types of machines. We have scale models here of milking robots, of self-driving tractors, of combine harvesters, of course the classic icon besides the tractor, the plow. But we have a lot, and we're building a vitrine, as they say in French, so a glass box wall here with all the machines in it on display. So if you ever visit Brussels, you should come round and have a look at our scale models, because it's just amazing, these things. And they are bloody expensive. I mean, these scale models, they trade for sometimes hundreds of euros because they're pitch perfect. They're made of steel, so it's not a plastic thing. It's really it's the real deal, only a bit smaller, of course.
This is all for now. I'll be back soon with more podcasts. You can always visit the website liberalforum.eu to know more about the activities of the European Liberal Forum. So until the next episode, let's keep making the world a better place.
You were listening to the Liberal Europe podcast by the European Liberal Forum. This podcast